Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon session of the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing and public meeting of May 14th, 2024. This meeting is being held in person at our hearing room at 1 Center Street on the 9th floor and also being held via Zoom for anyone who wishes to participate remotely and live streamed on our YouTube channel. And we will we'll resume this afternoon with public hearing item number 4. And I will turn it over to Corey Harala, our Director of Preservation, to take us through the afternoon agenda items.
Thank you, Sarah. Public hearing item number 4 is LPC 24-04069, an application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, Block 154, Lot 12, 3983 45th Street in the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. This is a brick row house with colonial revival style details designed by Clarence Stein, Henry Wright, and Frederick Ackerman, built in 1926. The application is to install skylights.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Timothy Shaw, Preservation Staff.
The applicants have entered the hearing, Tim, so please proceed.
Yeah, I believe the owner is in the Zoom but was unable to attend in person, but I will be doing the presentation on his behalf. So 3983 45th Street, apologies, is located on the east side of 45th Street between Skillman Avenue and 39th Avenues in Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. This is a front facade view. The application is to install 2 skylights through a slate roof at the rear slope of the roof. Just a couple existing other skylights in Washington Court, which is part of this, but this is the proposal. These are the locations of the skylights. Again, this is through slate, and there is some visibility, seasonal visibility from 46th Street through a gap in the street wall. So that's seen here. On the left is a photo from, when there's fairly full foliage, and then from a few weeks ago, the view that you can see at times, this condition. And that's it. It's fairly straightforward.
Any questions, Commissioners? Yes, Vice Chair Bland.
Haven't we approved other skylights in nearby?
Yes, we
have.
We've approved them on the back facades that have sort of incidental views, as this one does, as well as in the muse conditions where you can see them more directly from the street.
But never dormer.
There's not a dormer in this proposal. It's
No,
just,
but we've never approved.
Oh, we have not approved it. At this point, we have not. We've approved skylights and solar panels. Okay. Let me see if we have any testimony. Is there anyone in the room? There is no one in the room to speak on this item, so I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I do not see any remote participants with their hands raised. If you'd like to speak on this item, please click the raise hand button now. Okay, I do not see any hands raised, so I will note for the record that Queens Community Board 2 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, so I think we can probably, the applicant is on Zoom.
Yes,
correct?
he is in the
I don't
Zoom
know,
room.
would he like to say anything before we move to our discussion?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much. Thanks for your consideration. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and close the hearing. So Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so this is a proposal for 2 skylights on the rear slope of a house in Sunnyside Gardens. There is an incidental view into the courtyard, which allows for a seasonal view. And as Vice Chair Bland noted, we have approved skylights on the pitched roofs, including through slate, elsewhere in the historic district. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chapin, do you like to start this one?
Yeah, I agree that, this is very minimally visible, and it's, I think they need to replace some windows here in general, and this, putting in a skylight here, I think is very appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
As someone who lived in
was gonna
Sunnyside
say.
Gardens a few years ago, many years ago, fairly dark in those units, so I think the
Some.
skylight makes sense and is appropriate.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Chen?
No problem here.
Okay, Commissioner appropriate, Commissioner Jefferson?
I can approve.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement. So Commissioner Chapin, would you make the motion?
Okay. In the matter of a certificate of appropriateness, Borough of Queens, LPC 2404069, 39-83 45th Street, Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. A brick row house with colonial revival style details designed by Clarence Stein, Henry Wright, and Frederick Ackerman, and built in 1926. Application is to install skylights. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the existing windows are in a deteriorated condition that warrants replacement, that the house is set back substantially from the street, and because the windows and doors will not be viewed up close from a public thoroughfare, the change in material from painted wood to aluminum with a baked enamel finish will not be discernible, that the configuration, details, dimensions, and finish of the aluminum-clad wood sash and doors with the applied Muntin grid with internal spacer bars will match the existing wood sash
You just
and
pause for a
doors.
second. These aren't the
This
right
sounds like
findings.
it's a completely weird.
Yeah,
thing.
that's not the right
I
finding.
was reading it earlier and I thought, well, I guess the staff has approved this.
It's item 4 in your packet. Yeah, they were copied incorrectly. Let's pause
Where
for
is
just a
it?
sec.
Yeah, I kind of wondered why there was no mention of this, of the sashes. That says the same thing.
No. I can, you have to go to CAM, right?
Yeah.
I can. You know, I can pull up the ones that I reviewed, if that's easier. Let me double check. Yes, this has the. Here we go.
Okay, I recommend approval, finding the installation of the skylights on the rear slope of the roof will require only minimal removal of historic slate shingles, which will be salvaged and retained on site for possible future reuse. That the skylights will not be visible over the front facade of the building and will only be seasonably visible from a limited view corridor on 46th Street. That the installation will preserve the silhouette of the roof in relationship to other houses in the court, that there are other skylights installed in pitched roofs in this historic district, and this work reflects the adaptive reuse of the attic spaces of these very small houses over time, and that the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or historic district.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland, Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
I don't think she saw enough of
Okay,
it.
with 6 in favor and 1 abstaining, the motion passes.
All right, that's approved. Thank you, Tim. All right, we'll move to the next item.
All right, next item is public hearing item number 5, LPC 24-07621. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, Block 8030, Lot 81, 304 Shore Road in the Douglaston Historic District. This is a colonial revival style house designed by Frank Forster, built in 1922. The application is to replace windows and doors.
Good afternoon, Philip Metropolis, architect, working on this window replacement. And thank you, commissioners. I apologize for all the architects who work in Douglaston. This application should be done under a master plan because typically what everybody does when they're replacing their historic wood windows is that they go to an aluminum clad window, and it's a change of material, and that's why we're here today to talk about the material change. This is a lovely building built in I forget the time, maybe 1919, on a really large lot facing the water on Shore Road in Douglaston. It's quite prominent. Years ago, it had these 2 incredible copper beaches, but that were cut down by a previous owner some years ago, which was sad. But anyway, the building has been exposed, and it's really quite lovely, and it's been neglected. So the windows are all original. Actually, the first and second floor windows are all original. The attic windows were originally an arched top French casement window, and they were replaced with a very horrible vinyl section window. And obviously, we're looking to replace all of the windows in this building. So just to go around the facade, the building is flanked by these 3 wings, 2 sunroom wings, 1 on each end, and then a garage wing, which jets out the back, which is completely falling down, and we're rebuilding that in kind. But there's a variety of windows. There's double hung on the main facades, and then these wood casements in all of the sunrooms, all mulled together. And then on the attic, at the gable ends, there's some unusual decorative specialty windows that are assembled out of transoms and casement units. And they'll all be replaced in kind. The building is one of these classic masonry structures, completely, it's a terracotta block exterior wall with a brick, with integrated brick. It's not a veneer. It's about a 14-inch thick wall with including plaster interior. It's really quite substantial. And the proposal is to completely remove all of the historic wood windows and do a custom-sized replacement window that will fit masonry to masonry. And we're doing that, as I said, on all floors. Here, there's some triple units together, and they occur in a variety of locations. So, and then there's a three units together, 4 units together, and I think you can see there's a 4-unit. There's even a 5-unit on the north end that's really not visible from the street. And then these are some of the other arched top units that will be replaced in kind. So it's a little tricky to try to get accurate information, but we've done our best. We've climbed all over the building. Here are the attic windows, which will be incredibly beautiful when we put back the arched top architectural French casement window. And then there's an entrance as well into the sunroom, which we'll be replacing in kind. And on 3 of the windows, we're changing them to doors in order to be able to get onto the flat roofs. And here's historic context of 1980 and 1940 tax photos of the property. It really hasn't changed much. And there we go.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
A-203. One of the drawings, you have the brick drawn.
203, did you say?
A203.
Oops,
Yeah, go back.
there we go.
So, you see, you have the brick drawn in detail.
Yes,
Are they adding bricks or that's just?
that comes back to an old application where we're completely rebuilding that, that component, that brick build, the brick garage is falling down. And so we actually coursed all the brick. And so it's only illustrated here because it will be rebuilt in kind.
So it's not part of this
That part
application.
of it. Okay.
So this application is just for the replacement of the windows, which are wood windows, and except for where there's replacement vinyl windows, with new aluminum clad wood windows that otherwise match all the configuration, operation, and details of the historic windows. So they would otherwise meet the rules for a staff level approval, but for the change in material.
Because of the clad?
That's correct. The cladding, the staff on a house of this size and type, the staff doesn't have the authority to approve the clad material.
So also of another size, like my size, when I did that.
You wanna go ahead?
I just got staff.
Yeah, but these are actually subject to the Douglaston master plan, so it's different than the regular rules. In the regular rules, there are some cases where aluminum clad wood or aluminum could be used instead of wood, even for small houses, not always. But in this case, you can't do it at all in Douglas.
Douglaston is,
You need to get staff level approval.
In other
row
places,
Yeah.
sometimes, yes.
It's my understanding if we did file for a master plan and got a master plan approved, that could be a future approach.
right. I think that the Douglaston master plan was adopted decades ago now, and it maybe hasn't been updated as the current rules are. Okay.
So there are shutters proposed though, correct or not? Is this illustration?
The
Yes,
shutters
yes.
are being reviewed at staff level.
I'm sorry?
The shutters are being reviewed at staff level.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so is there anyone in the room who'd like to speak on this item? Don't think so, so I'm going to turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one remote participant, that being Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HGC appreciates the intent and direction of this window replacement proposal. However, we find the number of the proposed special windows are not accurately molded and therefore significantly alter the appearance of the facade. Additionally, we are unclear if the proposed shutters are a historic condition. If they are, we believe they can be reintroduced. If they're not, we believe they should be left off this handsome and stoic facade. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any additional hands raised, so I will note for the record that Queens Community Board 11 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right. Would you like to address any of those comments?
Yes, absolutely. On the mold windows, again, we're pulling out the frames entirely and going back to a custom-sized units that will be fit into the masonry opening. And that the mold is the best we can get out of the highest quality architectural wood, clad wood window that we can find. That also meets the energy code for design pressure performance.
All right, Commissioners, any final questions? And let's move to close the hearing. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
You, Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed, and this is a proposal to replace the windows with aluminum clad wood, which we just described, doesn't allow, the staff isn't allowed to, or authorized to approve the change in material under the Douglaston Master Plan. But the commission as a body has approved aluminum clad windows elsewhere in this historic district at public hearing. And I think by virtue of the way the houses are set back from the street and the relationship from the pedestrian to the house, the commission has found that if it otherwise meets all of the other details and profiles, it's not a discernible change. So we'll have a discussion about this one. Vice Chair Bland, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, sure. You know me, Mr. Windows. Well, first of all, an extraordinary house. Wow, what a drawing of it, and then the reality of it as well. Unlike many of the wonderful houses in Douglaston, but this seems to be more prominent than many. I mean, notwithstanding the testimony from HDC, which gave me pause that it's not accurately drawn, assuming that the applicant is accurate in what he's presented to us today, that it is a replication of the original in terms of size and operation, I think this is wholly appropriate, and will return the house with its replacement windows that are in place now back to a more original condition, which I think would be a wonderful thing for this very prominent house.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi?
Yeah, I agree with Fred. We, as you said, we have approved these types of windows in this district and actually throughout the city. They're quality windows. The muttons are much better than the regular applied muttons, and I think this work, and it is set back, which is important. So I can approve this.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
Appropriate.
All right, Commissioner Chapin?
So I think that this is very appropriate. I'm, pleased to see that the action is being taken because, it really contribute to the long-term health of the building. And, we very frequently approve this kind of window replacement. If it's not too visible, and it isn't in this case because of the way these houses are set back. So I find it totally appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner Ginsburg.
Appropriate.
And Commissioner Chen.
Same here.
Okay, so I think we have a consensus.
Good.
Chair Bland.
Yes, in the matter of 304 Shore Road in the Douglaston Historic District, this is an application to replace windows and doors. I recommend, first of all, I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Douglaston Historic District. I recommend approval, noting that the existing windows are in a deteriorated condition that warrants replacement. That the house is set back substantially from the street, and because the windows and doors will not be viewed up close from a public thoroughfare, a change in material from painted wood to aluminum with a baked enamel finish will not be discernible. That the configuration, details, dimensions, and finish of the aluminum-clad sash and doors with an applied mutton grid with an internal spacer bars will be similar to the existing wood and sash doors, and that replacing the original wood sash and doors with aluminum clad sash will not detract from the special historic and architectural character of the house of the historic district.
Thank you. And Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland, Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
7 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 6, LPC 24-06263, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 97, Lot 6, 110 South Street in the South Street Seaport Historic District. This is a federal-style store and loft building constructed in 1818 to 19 and reduced in height due to a major alteration in the 1870s. The application is to enlarge the building and construct missing floors on the facades.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Alan. Yes, I'm here to talk about 110 South Street, which you just noted was built in 1818, between 1818 and 1819. And there was actually a fire in 1953 where the third and fourth floor burnt down. And instead of rebuilding it, they just knocked it over. So our plan is to hopefully reconstruct this beautiful building and bring it back to what it was. And I'll begin going through it. So that's just to point out the historic district in the South Street Seaport. This is some pictures taken in the 1930s. Obviously very, very cool. The old fish market. And this is what it is today. So as you can see, the third and fourth floor are absolutely gone. And we're, again, hoping to bring it back. On the left, you can see what it was in the 1940s tax photo. And compared to its sister buildings, it was the oddball out, which makes it extremely unique to the rest of the buildings on the block, as well as the neighborhood. This is just to orient exactly where it is, and that you can see it from the Brooklyn Bridge and the FDR. This is the two far corners, Beekman and Peck Slip. This is the view from the FDR and the Brooklyn Bridge. This is another landmark project that was approved not too long ago and something that we use to kind of, when we're reworking 110 South Street. Some different views of buildings that had LPC approval. This was a building that wasn't approved too long ago by you guys, just 2 doors down. And this is the 1940s tax photo along with a rendering of what the building will look like when we finish it. With your blessings, of course. Just more renderings, different views. More renderings, different view. This is from the Brooklyn Bridge. FDR. Cross-section of the existing building and cross-section of the proposed. Existing, proposed. Rear, proposed rear. Okay, this is the storefronts that we use. These are all on the block, neighboring buildings. This is currently what's there right now is just something that they did probably in the 1990s. These bifold aluminum doors, and there's a roll-up gate in front of it, so we don't really have a good picture of it on here. But this is what we use to kind of rebuild, and also some of the things that you guys approved are pretty much exactly the same. And as you could see here, the one thing that we are doing versus probably is that this is aluminum. We're going to keep the brick, the cast iron, but replace the storefront with new aluminum, especially given that there is this is by the water. We think it'll be best, and it also kind of reflects what was approved on some of the newer neighboring buildings or older buildings that have been rebuilt. These are the material selections, colors. Let me know if anyone has any questions.
Could you just describe about the storefront? Is it true that it operates fully? I think
So that's what we would like. Yes, we are hoping that the storefront will have a hydraulic system that will allow it to kind of open up. And this is something that we've used, like the tin building to as an inspiration to have some continuity within the building. You know, that's a nice to have, but not a must have. Any other questions on that?
Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
The roofs were actually, sorry. So that's what it looks like from this picture, but from what we've seen, it did not, and we know with certainty that it did not align with the neighboring roof on the other side. And currently, the existing building facing the south, on the south of 110 South Street, the roof is higher than 109 South Street on the north.
Doesn't align with anyone.
It doesn't align with anyone.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
I think there's actually a few more slides. I
Yeah.
interrupted with the clarification.
No, no.
Yeah.
And if anyone has any other questions, I mean, please feel free, and thank you for bearing with me. This is my first time up here, and I am a bit nervous of all you commissioners, to be completely honest.
Intimidating.
I've never met a commissioner before, so to have all of you, like this many in one room, but everyone seems very nice.
So I do have a question.
Sure.
Could we go to the front facade, please?
Here, this,
Which shows it within context.
I believe that is here, this one here?
No, within the context of all of its neighbors.
Addition.
This?
Yeah, I don't know, did the rest of the presentation sort of talk about the massing of the top, and maybe we should get through that?
I think did you have structural slides left?
We have one structural side, and I think
Okay.
this one's gonna, but I do want to answer your question that you have. You guys tell me, should I go? to-
I can wait.
Either way, so I'll just, run.
Okay, so we can go back to, related to the structural components, then we'll wait and see if the structural engineer arrives. In the meantime, we'll discuss the components of the application, which are to return the upper floors to this building. And then where this row, we've seen them before, they have these very deep, steeply pitched roofs because they had the hoists for
Yes.
for bringing things off the ship. And so this building lost its top, so the proposal is to recreate a top and then to do an addition that is similar in line with the former pitched roof, but
Right,
a little taller, is that right?
that's correct. Yes. It's about 2 feet taller.
So it's about two, and it historically aligned with either the one to the right or the left?
It definitely never aligned with the one to the right. The one to the left, in some of the pictures that we have, it looks like it aligns, and some of the pictures we have, it looks like it does not align.
It does have a pitched roof nonetheless.
It does have a pitched
Taller
roof.
than its neighbors. And it
That's
has a
correct.
pitched roof,
Yeah, and what you,
Whether it aligns or doesn't.
right. If I can find that picture.
The main reason why.
So come up to the mic for two reasons. One, we are on Zoom as well, so for the participants to hear you, you need to speak in the mic,
Hi.
but also just state your name for the record.
I'm Nicolette. I'm the designer on the project, and just to add a little bit of extra information, the intention behind the choice for us to be just slightly higher is really based on the fact that our neighbors' highest pitch, like the highest peaks, are not aligned with each other, and they're not aligned front and back to each other. They're not perpendicular to the party walls. They're also not in line with the angle of the street. So basically, in order to compensate for that misalignment, we're just slightly above, the height of those existing roofs.
Yes, please go ahead.
This? Sorry.
Maybe that.
This one?
Yeah, that's,
No,
shows.
these are all the neighboring buildings. Oh, you might be right. Can you tell me what page?
I think if you go back a couple of slides, there was a view over the FDR. There you
This one.
go. Whoops, there.
But anyway, in your proposal,
Yes.
so in the proposal, I just wanted to ask you, what are your floor heights and
you know, visually, the whole thing is very in terms of the window sizes, except now it breaks.
Maybe start with what was there, just because that was a little taller anyway.
Yes.
And then go to what you're doing. Yeah.
So I think it's almost, what we've done is we kind of used the existing window openings of what we had and kind of built off of that. I'm not exactly certain on the exact height. I want to say that they're probably somewhere around 6 feet tall, and what we've done is we've tried to kind of use these old tax photos here to kind of see how they line up with the existing buildings windows. And that's what we kind of measured in order to kind of determine what the actual height of these windows are and their locations.
And they get gradually smaller as you go up.
Yeah, as you can see. And the floor heights they vary. There's between 10 to 11 feet depending on the floor. So I'll run through the structural, and then if you guys have any questions back then, down here too.
Okay, and just before you do that, we have one more question on
Sure.
design, Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, is this just about the platform? What's on the equipment platform? What will be on the equipment platform?
The equipment platform for the condensers.
So is it air conditioning or something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's air conditioning. I think we have. you
that's
can
what
see on the
that's what I
back
was asking. What,
Yes,
what kind of equipment is going on?
HVAC equipment.
Okay, thank you.
Many pages. All right. This is a structural. What we're doing is basically not using any of the existing foundation, not using any of the existing party walls. We're putting in all new columns, and then we're building on top of that. So we're basically building a building within a building. So that's not going to affect, we don't want to affect any of the existing party walls. They're actually leaning in different directions. On both sides, they're kind of coming in at us. So we decided we're gonna kind of take our own space. We're building anywhere from 4 to 9 inches away from the existing party walls. Any questions regarding that?
No, but Corey, is this in our queue for enhanced engineering?
It could be something that's reviewed, but because it's already so altered and they're,
Yeah.
they're leaving in place what they can of the structure, it doesn't fit into the same category as interventions, other things we looked at.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
I just wanted to, just so everyone's clear on it, this building always, from as far back as we can tell, if you could go back to the earliest photographs, before the tax photo from the 40s, stood out from the surrounding counted houses. It might have been a very early alteration, but for at least 100, 150 years, it's been taller and sort of had that pitched up portion at the front, always had windows that didn't align. And it's not entirely clear, but it does look at it like it had some pitched roof that maybe aligned with one of the buildings to one side or the other. But I just would like the architect to clarify, because I think on your sections and side elevations, it sort of shows your profile following that of the neighbors on either side, but being a couple feet higher. But on your rendering on page 14, the ridge looks lower and forward of the others. So I want to, maybe you can explain if one of those is inaccurate. And
Are you referring to that?
yes, here. So your sections and side elevations show your ridge kind of aligning with the others and higher by a couple feet, but in this rendering, it's proud of it by a few feet and lower. So is this a rendering error?
Yeah, that's rendering. That's correct.
Maybe you can describe what you would see instead.
So basically, you would see the same thing, except the peak would be from that roof 2 feet higher. From the roof on the closer to us.
Yeah. I see, so it would be at that same angle, but the peak would be
But higher.
further back. Okay.
It doesn't slope the same.
It does. The reason that we went, yes, this rendering, there's a couple things that are inaccurate with it, so thanks for pointing that out. The reality is that it is going to be about 2 feet higher from the neighboring building to the right. And but the actual slope and everything are 100% aligned, and that was something that Jared and Fred really helped us on and told us that was important, so we tried to maintain that. The real reason, and the most important reason why we're going higher, is because this room becomes completely useless 2 feet. If we want to maintain that slope and have a roof height that is what the current buildings are, which is also not what this building used to be, based off of what we found. So that's the main reason why it's so important for us to be 2 feet higher on this. I mean, the good thing about it is that the only place that you could see this from is the Brooklyn Bridge or the FDR.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
The datum, the horizontal datum of your coping with the building, 2 buildings down, do they align?
2 buildings down?
Yeah, I think it's page 14, right? You see, you have the, you see your building,
Is it
and you
this,
see the
this one
coping
that
line,
you're
and you
referring
go
to?
2 buildings
Which
to
one?
the
This
left.
one, here.
And there's
The very
smaller
corner?
building.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
Align with that?
Oh, you see.
Your new building?
It, does it align with that?
No,
Yeah.
That's not.
That one is, was existing, I think, five stories, and they added an additional floor. So we're basically keeping all our same heights, except we're having, the peak of the roof higher with an outdoor area.
So the one on the corner is slightly taller than the proposed.
So everything is taller, nothing along.
And it didn't align historically.
Yeah, no, it never aligned, and it is now currently 1 story higher than what it used to be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I'll note that there is no one in the hearing room to testify in this item, so I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of remote participants in the attendees list. The first being Jeremy Woodoff from the Victorian Society of New York. Jeremy Woodoff, I've promoted you to panelist. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jeremy Woodoff for the Victorian Society, New York. We think raising this building to its historic height is appropriate, but the applicant needs to base his design on either the original 1819 building or the 1870 redesign, not the mishmash of both that is proposed. Now, I will say there seems to be some real confusion as to the history of this building. I think the designation report states that it's part of an 1819 row, some of whose buildings still remain with their pitched roofs and Flemish bond brick. And I also believe that the 1870 alteration raised the roof, enlarged the windows, and it appears also that the facade was reclad, as the bricks that remain currently are not in Flemish bond, as they are at most of the adjacent buildings in the row. If the applicant wants to restore this 1870 building, it needs to have a flat roof, as it would have in 1870, with a possible utilitarian bulkhead addition, not the pitched bulkhead roof that's proposed. If the applicant wants to recreate the original federal building, the roof should match its neighbors, or at least one of its neighbors, in the row in height and pitch. The roofscapes in this district are very important and can be seen from many public vantage points. The designation report also states that at numbers 110 and 112, fluted cast iron round columns with palmette capitals are particularly noteworthy, unquote. These don't appear in the presentation photos or in plans for the storefront. If they exist or were removed since designation, they should be preserved or replicated and incorporated into the storefront. The new storefront itself should be painted wood, especially in a district like this, regardless of which era the building is reconstructed to. We hope that the historic brickwork and window lintels and sills at the existing building can be retained and incorporated into the rebuilt facade. This would preserve at least some patina of age on this building, and the inevitable differences between old and new brickwork would reflect the building's history. Finally, the Commission must do a better job reviewing details, both on final drawings and in the field, to avoid the results seen at the recent reconstruction of the similar buildings in the row at 9th Avenue and 14th Street. The details of windows, cornice, storefronts, and chimneys are simply dreadful. We don't want that in the Seaport. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I've promoted you to panelist. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC appreciates the restorative effort being made here and finds it largely appropriate. However, we feel that the main ridge line of the original building should be rebuilt to align with the ridges of the adjacent structures. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any additional hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 1 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you. And so I'm going to ask you to, if you'd like to respond to the comments that we've heard. But before we do that, I just want to address the Victorian Society's comment about the staff's review of details. The staff reviews the details of windows and all aspects of any change of any building very, very carefully. And the site that you mentioned is an example of windows that were and storefronts that were installed in non-compliance with the very carefully detailed drawings that the staff approved. So with that, you can go ahead and respond to the comments on this application.
I can tell you from being an applicant that staff level really scrutinizes those windows, and it takes like 6 months to get some windows on a brownstone approved. So I think so far you guys have been doing a very detailed job. Second, I also want to thank Jeremy because any information is great. We appreciate it, and we would love for you even to reach out to us if that's okay, you know, to say this after, because we are committed to bringing and restoring what was original. We've done a lot of historic preservation projects, and we really, really do care about this. We really do. We're not looking to make this up. We hate that. That's not what we're about, not what our firm is about, not what we're looking to do here. So I'm very happy to learn more, and any feedback is great. The one thing that is essential and one thing that we have to remember is cost. This is not a cheap project. This is extremely expensive. That extra foot or 2 feet that we're asking that you can see from the Brooklyn Bridge, that's like several hundred feet away, or from the FDR going 55 miles, makes a huge difference in how much the actual value of this building is going to be worth. By bringing that ridge line down, you eliminate that floor, you eliminate the value, and the $3.5 million plus investment, just hard costs, is going to, it's not possible, right? So I know that that's not what you guys are 100% about. I understand that's not your priority, but it is a real consideration for us to be able to get the money to fund this project, to rebuild this amazing building. And as far as whether it's wood or aluminum, we're willing to work with everyone to make sure that everyone is happy. We do want to maintain the historical integrity, and it's something that is very important to us and that we do care about. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Much. Commissioners, any final questions? All right, let's move to our discussion then. Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
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 And
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed, and we're going to have our discussion now about this proposal to really restore the upper floors of the building that have been removed over time, and to do that with new brick, new windows, a new cornice, and then to recreate or to do a setback top floor that has a roof line that evokes the historic sloped roof that predated the that was from an earlier iteration of the building. The proposal also includes aluminum storefront, and we've heard testimony about that as well. And finally, I think just to reiterate, the facade as raised was always different than the other buildings in the row. So this height is restoring it to its historic second generation height, not aligning with the flanking buildings, and a little lower than the building on the end, which itself was raised an additional story historically. And that setback floor is seen a little bit here, and then otherwise from views looking down into the historic district. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this one?
Okay, in general, I think this is appropriate. I think there are probably some development of the details that should be worked with staff just to refine it. But I think this is reasonable in recreating what was there in a similar form, and so I can vote for it.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Chen?
I think that, it's about time to restore this building to this area. Obviously, the slope of the top of the building is the issue, and I was thinking that if you were to really raise and slope it the other way, it actually raises the more visibility on the FDR Drive, and it would make it look awkward. So, yeah, so I think at this current form, unless Commissioner McGlynn has something else to suggest.
All right. Vice Chair Bland?
Yeah, in many ways, I think what's been said is I can support. I'm a little mixed up in my own mind because the applicant has just thrown in the idea that the project may not be feasible financially if we don't opt for his approach, which is not something we typically do. On the other hand, it's hard to not face that reality to some degree and think what's here, is it better than what's there now? And I think it is. I'm just sort of airing my own confusion a little bit. I do acknowledge that these houses along this frontage are incredibly important, incredibly old, incredibly part of our history as a city. And they were, as has been said several times now, individually built and therefore didn't really take into account what mostly later development of our city did, often 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 in a row. These were one-offs, I think, for the most part, and therefore this building being a one-off is a one-off. It's not trying to align or anything, and I think that's fine. Shouldn't try to align with either of its neighbors, immediate neighbors or not. So I think I think there's some details that need to be worked out. We've all sort of said that, but I'm looking at the bigger picture now of just should it be approved as it is, slightly higher than it really maybe wants to be, but I don't think too much higher. So sorry, I'm thinking out loud too much. Yes, I think I can approve it as it is, as long as staff puts it through the ringer as you want it to be anyway.
Okay, Commissioner Lutfi?
So I think, everybody has said that this is a very important part of our city streetscape in this particular neighborhood. And the even more interesting thing about it is that, especially as it deals with the rooftop, is that the best view you have is from the highway. And if you drive by it, this little section leaves you with a very memorable moment. About the city's history and its landscape in this particular neighborhood. And so the whole concept of filling in this little gap here, it's actually a big gap right now. It's like missing part of your tooth or something, is, I think, very important visually. And it will really be like the last piece in the puzzle that makes it feel whole. So I think the biggest issue here, and I'd like to say this about this presentation and maybe offer it as a little bit of advice for future things that might come before us, is that your details are really not so strong. And, you know, one rendering shows the roof pitch one way, something else shows it another way. There are other details that, you know, just are not, they don't do your presentation a service, and the concept of service here. I think I'm not influenced in any way by what the dollars and cents are of this project. I would like, but I think what you're trying to accomplish is positive. Now, I think the last thing I heard about the roof pitch is that it does really mirror what's there, but we're not seeing it that way. Is that correct? Oh, I cannot open it.
No, but Corey can maybe answer.
Yeah. I think he said the roof pitch does relate to the roofs next to it. It's just that the renderings are not showing it that
They
way.
indicated that it's
Yeah.
slightly higher, I think, within a
Mhm.
foot or two, and follows at least the profile
Yeah.
of one or the other.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't think the extra height is a problem. And I think the fact that it follows the, you know, follows the profile is positive. I think it would be nice if the materiality sort of worked with what we're seeing visually at the other rooftops. So to that extent, I would recommend that maybe use gray metal or gray stucco, or just something that kind of helps it seamlessly, sort of visually, work together. And then on everything else, I think, you know, you really have to work with staff on the details.
Okay. Commissioner Jefferson?
So I think this building is really a roof building. It's the dominant fourth facade is extremely important from across the bridge everywhere. And I think that the cut that they're making, stopping it before it reaches the edge of the building, takes away from making the roof dominant. And I think there's an example of a building that we just approved, the neighbor down, 2 buildings down, that have a cutout that at least continues the roof down all the way to the edge, and they still have their open space.
So sort of on the sides,
Yeah,
there's
this comes down and they cut a
down.
hole in it, and they still have that open balcony that they're looking for. But with the cut that they have, plus the skyline, it becomes too much. The roof then becomes disintegrated, becomes too abstract. It doesn't have the dominant position it has from the view across the bridge, which is, I think, is an important view. Every time I go across the bridge, I see that. I think enlarging the building is appropriate for its now. I think the details of the base level could be defined, but I think focus should be on that roof and how the dominance of that roof visually, and how you can still cut it and still get what you want for the
The silhouette.
You can solve that.
Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I have, I think the same concerns. I feel like it looks very disjointed to me, the way it's, you know, you've got a pitched roof, but then you've got a flat roof, and one of the testimonies said, well, make it flat or pitched, but, you know, I'm looking at the picture from 1935 of Bernice Abbott, which, with the pitched roof, which looks very nice and aligns with the other roofs, and it's the same height. And I'm not sure why it wouldn't be possible to just do that. And I'm concerned that if you, as Eduardo said, if you put in the, you can put in a skylight, but if you've got the skylight and you've got the two levels going on, it looks very disjointed to me, and it doesn't, this row has this whole sense of, the pitched roofs continuing. And I don't have a problem with the height of the building. That was there to begin with, and I think it's a little anomalous, but that's fine. It's just a kind of, the buildings move up and down, but they're moving up and down in the same rhythm, so to speak, and that pitched roof to me is very important. That's the only thing that bothers me about the design, is just that. And I think if it were just a pitch, that the skylight wouldn't, we have, I think one of the ones we approved had a skylight in it as well.
Well, it's a cutout, as Commissioner Jefferson pointed out, the one that we approved on
Yeah.
the left side of that box is a cutout, but it keeps the sides, so you have.
Yeah,
the
so you
silhouette.
have this sense of the same,
Okay,
exactly.
all right,
Thank you.
so I think, so
And if
then-
I may,
Yes,
I want to say,
Commissioner
if
Jeff.
you go back to the previous historic photo, the whole row, the windows tend to be very vertical, the previous one, yeah. If you look at the layout of the windows, they tend to be on the narrow side. I think the current application, the window is much wider. And I think that's one thing that stood out for me, because when it comes to this building, also your buildings become extremely large, extremely wide. That's one thing I think. And I think, the suggestion, I think, as you pointed out, compared to our previous approval on especially the view from FDR Drive, if you really need to go for that floor-to-floor height, that really is maybe the front setback is much more appropriate rather than this thing sticking out like on FDR Drive. If you go back to the rooftop drawing on the FDR Drive, come on, next one. The one that we were looking at before, the one that was comparing the rooftop. No, prior to this, yeah.
The yellow box.
The yellow box that we were showing earlier.
Do you have a number?
There.
This one?
No, not that.
No, the other one, keep on going back to the front. Keep on right here,
This.
right? So if you maintain the pitch roof and you set back on the top floor, you maintain the continuity of the language of
Right.
the pitch, and
You mean-
rather than, yeah. in
But the
front.
street wall historically was taller than the neighbors.
I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right, so I think what we're talking about here is general support for this project and wishing you the best, because I think it would fill this missing tooth, this gap in the streetscape, and could really enhance the relationship with the other buildings. But in doing, and we do appreciate that you worked hard to keep your slope at the same angle as the neighbors, and I think everybody's okay with the 2 feet taller because you have kept the slope at the same angle. But I think we'll do it with the modification that you continue to work with the staff on the details, particularly of the storefront and at the rooftop, and explore ways to maintain the silhouette of the sloped roof as it's viewed from the sides. Are you comfortable with that, Commissioner Ginsburg?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and also this is such an important role and of the history of the city, and also the visibility from this angle, especially on the FDR Drive.
Great.
With regards to LPC 2406-263-110 South Street Seaport Historic District, a federal-style store and loft building constructed in 1818, 1819, and reduced in height in 1870. Application is to reconstruct the facade and enlarge the building. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the South Street Seaport Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the work will not damage or destroy any significant architectural features. that the building was reduced from 4 stories to 2 stories after the 1940 tax photo, and the proposed work will fill in the gap in the street wall.
So,
That the missing 4 will be rebuilt to match the historic 4-story height, incorporating cast stone sills and lintels, 2/2 double-hung wood windows, and an articulated fiberglass cornice, and the resulting front facade will match the design dimensions and fenestration patterns of the original facade as documented by historic photos. That the steeply sloped roof are typical features of the counting house building type seen throughout this historic district, particularly along South Street, and the slope of the proposed rooftop addition will recall the historic typology. That the design and materiality of the rooftop penthouse featuring finished brick returns, gray standing seam metal roof, and black finished metal window and railings will be in keeping with the treatment of the rooftop addition and other rooftop accretions found throughout the historic district. That the building is located across from the elevated FDR Drive, which limits views and reduces the visual impact of the penthouse on the streetscape as seen from street level. That the blocks of South Street have a variety of building heights and widths with sloped roofs, chimneys, dormers, and bulkheads seen above the cornice line, and therefore the massing of the rooftop penthouse will blend into the diverse streetscape and roofscape. That the proposed retractable ground floor infill consisting of painted aluminum with glass storefront with an overhead swing and commercial and residential entrances when in the down position will incorporate an historic cast iron column, and when retracted will recall the open character of utilitarian fishmonger shops historically found in the district. That the proposed work at the altered rear facade, including raising it to 4 stories and featuring large multi-light openings with metal windows and door assemblies, will be compatible with the variety of historic and contemporary rear facades of surrounding buildings in the block, and that the proposed work will enhance the special architectural and historic character of the building and of South Street Historic District. However, I find that the detailing materiality of the rooftop addition, storefront, and some facade elements remains unresolved. Therefore, I recommend that the applicant lower the, no, I don't recommend that.
No.
That the applicant work with staff to refine the details of the storefront and the rooftop addition, and continuing the slope at the edges of the building of the rooftop addition to reflect the slope of the adjacent building. That the detail of the storefront be refined to better relate to the proportions and articulations of the historic and contemporary storefronts found in other buildings in the district, and that the cast stone sills and lintels match the historic brownstone elements remaining on the facade, and the details of the cornice be refined in consultation with staff to approximate the historic condition.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi. With 7 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so
All
that's
right, thank you
approved.
guys very much.
Thank you.
Great day.
So we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 7, LPC 23-11965, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1252, Lot 5, 202 Riverside Drive in the Riverside West End Historic District. Proposed art-style apartment building designed by George F. Pelham and built in 1905. The application is to install a banner sign and legalize the installation of a plaque sign in non-compliance with Certificate of No Effect 99-4143.
Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Nicholas Agnetta, architect. I'm representing the Twin Parks Montessori School, who has a facility at 202 Riverside Drive. And I'm going to be proposing two things today. One is to install a banner on the facade outside the front door to the school. And the second is to legalize a plaque that was previously put on the building, which was previously approved by the Landmarks Commission, but it was installed in a location that wasn't approved. Okay, so those are the two things I'm presenting. So we just, these are, this is the well, this is my cover page. So here's a picture of the entrance of the school, the 1940s tax photo, Google Map image from above, and a plot plan of the proximity of the building to Riverside Drive. Just a plan of the building where the main residential entry is along Riverside Drive and the entrance to the school is along 91st Street. And this is a photograph from the corner of 91st and Riverside Drive looking south, where we just show where those two entrances are. This is for the residential portion of the building. This is for the school entry. This is an elevation of from 91st Street. The entrance to the school is at approximately this location. And these dashed lines represent a recessed areaway that's between the sidewalk and the building that students and teachers and parents need to go down to get to the entrance to the building. This is a larger view of the elevation leading into the school, but I'm sorry I didn't put the recess where the door is actually down here somewhere, a photograph of the, not a photo, but a drawing of the proposed banner and how it's going to be mounted to the facade within the existing joints of the stonework. And the proposed location of the banner is right here. And the existing location of the plaque is right here. And you'll see later that the proposed location of the plaque was in this location. Here's a rendering or a doctored photo showing the location of the photograph of the proposed banner and the location of the existing location of the plaque. This is the same image, same building, just looking from a different view. This is looking from Riverside Drive. You could see the bollards and railing that separate protect people from falling into the areaway along 91st Street. Here's a copy of the approved LPC application for the banner, for the plaque. And the plaque was proposed to be just about in line with the top of the door and in sync with the joinery of the stone below. But instead, the plaque was mounted higher, and it's also slightly different dimensions than the plaque that was proposed. This is not my submission, and it's my assumption that the plaque was raised for, I believe, two reasons. One is because this location is more at eye level with the sidewalk, and you're still looking down into the areaway here, and it would have been a little bit more difficult to mount them on the rusticated brownstone. So here's a closer view of my proposed location for the banner, which is in the center of this pier between the two windows. Here's the entrance to the school. Here's just another closer rendering of the banner, the plaque, and approximate eye level drawing right there. That's it. Oh, sorry.
Thanks. Do we have any questions, commissioners? Yes,
Just
Commissioner
one,
Chen.
In general, do we always is very specific about the location of the sign, or is it, or does every time the signs should move, then it has to come back to us?
So the staff can approve plaques and signs that are in traditional or typical locations for signs, particularly in front of storefronts, or, and generally with plaques, it's sort of adjacent to an entry. And so that's, I'm sure, how this approval came to be. It was adjacent to the entry. It was moved up to the flat stone, which actually may be easier to repair at some point in the future than the rusticated stone, probably easier to install. So there are a number of types of plaques that can be approved by staff, and this is similar to them, except that the location is not eligible for a staff level review because it's in this upper location. Although I think there's some explanation and benefits to that. And then similarly with the banner, the staff cannot approve banners that are not associated with storefronts. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, let's see if we have any public testimony. I'll note that there's no one in the hearing room to speak, so I'll turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one remote participant with their hand raised, that being Megan Fitzpatrick from Landmark West. Megan Fitzpatrick, I've promoted you to panelist. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee opposes legalizations of non-compliant work, especially when the property owner blatantly ignores the landmarks law and the Commission's guidance. Our committee believes a more appropriate proposal would be to place the plaque on the rusticated stone where it was originally approved to go and place the proposed flagpole and banner where the current plaque is situated on the smooth limestone. Further, the current plaque appears to be larger than the originally approved one. If this is the case, we suggest the applicant return to the previously approved dimension. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 7 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay. Would you like to respond to the comments we've heard?
No.
Okay, let me just, there was, the Landmarks West suggested that the banner be relocated to that flat portion of stone right above your entry, sort of where the plaque is. And are there zoning issues that would preclude that?
Oh, yeah, I should have responded. The flag has to be 10 feet above the sidewalk. So that would be
All right, Commissioners,
a
any other?
violation of the building code.
Right, so you can't lower it to that location. Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's move to close the hearing and begin our discussion. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Thank you. And Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Hearing is closed, and we have two signs before us. One is a plaque that was installed in non-compliance with an earlier permit. And instead of being installed in the rusticated stone, it's been installed in the flat stone above that. And I think that the applicant believes that that was partly because it was difficult to install it into the rusticated stone. There may be the benefit of it being easier to repair the flat stone than the rusticated stone. But it is a little high in relation to the door. And then similarly, we are looking at a proposal for a banner, which in order to meet the applicable zoning codes is placed at the second floor windows, or it's technically the first floor windows, above the space that the school occupies. And we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Lutfi.
Would have been better if the applicant had complied with what was approved. And if you think about the location of the plaque, it's a weird location. I mean, it really should be at eye level when you're at the door level. And would have looked better in the rest, against the rusticated stone. And I'm sure it could have been hung in a way that wasn't going to be a problem. So in the ideal world, I actually think it should move. But I'll go along with whatever my fellow commissioners feel about it, and I'm fine with the banner.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Jefferson.
It's such a modest.
Commissioner Chapin?
I mean, I'm okay with it as presented. I think it's necessary, it's modest, and it's appropriately attached. And, you know, neither thing is large, and it's typical that for institutions of this nature to have a little plaque, so I don't have a problem with it.
Commissioner Ginsburg?
Given that this entrance is sort of half hidden, I think the plaque and banner are important, and as others have said, are modest, and so I think this is approvable.
Commissioner Chen?
I sort of agree in the sense that the plaque is more visible from the sidewalk than it being a lower level, because it has a sunken alleyway, and if it's in the original location, you almost have to bend down to look at the plaque. So I can find that appropriate.
Vice Chair Bland. Okay, so Commissioner Lutfi, are you okay? Okay.
In the matter of docket 23-11965-202 Riverside Drive, West End Historic District, a Beaux-Arts style apartment building designed by George F. Pelham and built in 1905. The application is to install a banner sign and legalize the installation of a plaque sign in non-compliance with Certificate of No Effect 99-143. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Riverside West End Historic District. I recommend approval finding that the plaque is mounted at plain masonry and the banner will be anchored within the recesses of the rusticated masonry, thereby not damaging or eliminating any significant architectural features. That the signs will be in keeping with typical signage in terms of proximity to an entrance and will support the continued adaptive reuse of this portion of the apartment building as a school. That the banner and plaque are simply designed, typical in terms of materials and finishes, modest in size and quantity, and similar to signage found within the historic district. And that the cumulative effect of the existing plaque and proposed banner sign at the first floor and basement level of the facade located away from the more highly decorative features will not detract from the building or the streetscape.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
Clark, call the vote.
Chair Carroll?
Aye.
Commissioner Bland? Aye. Commissioner Chapin?
Aye.
Commissioner Chen?
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg?
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi?
Aye.
With 7 in favor, none opposed, the motion passed.
That's approved. Thank you. Move to the next item.
All right, then I will note again that we had previously reviewed public hearing item number 8 earlier in the day. So we'll now be going to public hearing item number 9, LPC 24-04741, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1120, lot 23, 1 West 67th Street in the Upper West Side, Central Park West Historic District. A neo-Gothic style studio building with Tudor style elements designed by George M. Pollard and built in 1915 to 18. The application is to modify a window opening and replace windows.
Hey, Commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. Elliot, you now have control of the presentation. You just need to click on your screen. And then you can advance the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Hi, my name is Elliot Folsom and I'm here from Panorama Windows. And I am going to talk to you about the alteration of one masonry opening in the rear of 1 West 67th Street, the Hotel des Artistes. So I'm going to be very brief because it's pretty cut and dry, but basically the image on the right is a photo of the exterior rear facade of the building. And we are working in an apartment that has two of these large, double height studio windows. They are, I don't know if you can see my mouse. They're this opening and this opening. The proposed scope of work is to alter the masonry opening height on this window so it aligns with the adjacent window. Here's a historic photo of the a portion of the rear facade. Unfortunately, this is all I was able to get, but it does give you an idea as to what the historic condition of the windows was. So again, this is just an elevation of the window that we're proposing. That is the window in question is this window here, and unfortunately, my PDF didn't pick up the highlight around that. But as you can see, it's 3 pairs of casement windows with fixed windows above, and then there are 2. They're kind of an offset pivoting window in the top corners and a fixed center unit. So this is the elevation, as I said, of the existing window there, which is actually historic. The adjacent window in the apartment is a replacement window. But that is not what this public hearing is about. So basically there are 2 thoughts behind this. Currently, there's no real uniformity in the back of the building. As you can see, all the different windows are in different lines on this portion of the building. These windows are all in the same line. But we are hoping that by increasing the masonry opening size here, dropping the sill section so that it is in line with the adjacent window, and reverting back to the historic condition, will provide some uniformity to this kind of hodgepodge of a facade. So again, currently the window is this is the elevation of the existing window, and we are proposing to drop the masonry sill by, I think it's 22.5 inches, which would then give us this configuration for the proposed window. We plan on we're not going to do a pivoted window in the top corner, but we're going to do an awning window, and basically revert the window back to its historic, or keep the window at its historic configuration. So again, just to go through, the plan is to enlarge the height of the masonry opening to match the immediate adjacent window. There's little to no uniformity throughout the north facade. And the proposed window reverts back to the historic aesthetic as opposed to the rest of the windows in the on the rear facade. Now, we will also be changing the adjacent window, and that will be as well matching the historic condition. So we're going to take one window that's existing historic and one window that's a replacement window, and we're going to bring both of them back to what the historic configuration was. Oh, go too far. I don't know if you are interested in seeing, but I had prepared a window condition report. It's somewhat lengthy. Is this something that you would like me to go through?
No, I think not. We may have questions, but that's fine.
Okay. So then that concludes my portion.
All right. Commissioners, are there any questions on this one? All right, not seeing any questions and noting that there is no one in the hearing room, I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants for testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one remote participant, Megan Fitzpatrick from Landmark West. Megan Fitzpatrick, I am promoting you to panelist right now. And once you are panelist, please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee is not opposed to lowering the sill to make the proposed window align with one of the other already altered windows on the row. We would like to emphasize, however, the window fenestration on the north facade of the Hotel des Artistes was originally constructed with the design intent of off-centered windows, and therefore this proposal is not attempting any historical correction, but making it more aesthetically pleasing for the owner. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any additional hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 7 recommends approval. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, Elliot, if there's anything you'd like to add before we move to our discussion?
No, and that's pretty much all that I have.
Okay, all right, commissioners, any final questions? All right, let's move to our discussion then. Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
And Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second
Second.
that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed. So we're looking at the rear facade of the building at 1 West 67th Street, the Hotel des Artistes. It's a studio building, and it has historically had very large studio windows. At this north facade, there are many replacement windows, and the proposal is to drop the sill of one opening to match the adjacent opening, which was altered at some point earlier in its history, and then to install windows that match the historic windows, but in that slightly taller height. And so we'll have our discussion on that. Commissioner Jefferson, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I mean, this is matching the two windows makes sense. And replacing the historic windows with steel windows, that makes sense. I can.
Okay, great. Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, my only, I guess, question is whether we might, there might be some kind of plan, hopefully, and I don't mean, in other words, let's hope that this can continue to kind of arrange the back in a suitable fashion. I assume only these two windows are under the client's
That's correct.
jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have seen other individual apartments have replacement applications, both on the front and the rear.
Okay.
All right, Commissioner Ginsburg?
Appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Chen?
Just want to note appreciate the comment from the testimony from Landmark West.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Okay, I think we'll go ahead and make a motion to approve that.
In the
Commissioner
matter of LPC-24-04741, 1 West 67th Street, Upper West Side, Central Park West Historic District. Application is to modify window openings and replace windows. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historical character of the Upper West Side, Central Park West Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not alter or eliminate any significant architectural features, that dropping the sill of the window opening to match the adjacent altered condition, which has been present for at least 30 years, will not detract from a uniform fenestration pattern at the undersigned secondary facade, that the removal of the historic steel studio windows is warranted by its deteriorated condition, and that the proposed steel windows will match or approximate the original steel windows in terms of configuration, operation, detail, and finish, and will restore the fenestration of this facade closer to its original appearance, and that the work will not detract from the special historic and architectural character of the building or the historic district.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland, Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
With 7 in favor, none opposed, the motion passed.
That's approved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, you too. All right, we're going to move to the next item, which is public hearing item number 10. And I'll just note that we have two recusals, Vice Chair Bland and Commissioner Chen. So we won't be able to vote today, but we'll still have we'll review it and have a discussion.
Right. Public hearing item number 10 is LPC 24-07541, an application for a binding report. It's in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1111, Lot 1, 1000 Fifth Avenue in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. This is individual and interior landmark. Those are in Roman-style museum building designed by Vaux and Mold, R.M. Hunt and McKim White, and built in 1864 to 65, with later additions built between 1975 and 1990, and designed by Roche Stinkelhoop. The application is to replace skylights with metal roofing.
Hello. Hello. My name is Brett Guyard. I'm the head of capital planning at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Thank you for having us today. We got held up with our Monel samples coming through security, so they will be right behind us so that we can show you our physical samples. I am just going to briefly introduce our architect, Nader Tarani, who will run through the presentation with you. As I think we've said to you all before for other projects, every time we renovate our galleries, we have the opportunity to renovate the infrastructure above and around those galleries. So that's why we're here before you today. We are renovating our Ancient East and Cypriot galleries, which are totally interior to the museum and outside of the designated interior landmark. But as part of this project, we are going to replace one of the skylights above the galleries with an opaque roof. And that's why we're here before you today. And Nader will go through all the reasons why we're doing that with you. Nader? Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I assume if I push forward, it'll go next, or?
Just click on the screen.
If you could just make sure. Oh, there you go. All right, thank you. All right. So again, my name is Nader Tarani. I represent NADA and Moody Nolan in the effort to for the renovations of the Ancient Near East and Cypriot galleries at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. As Brett outlined, this is an opportunity to address the deterioration of the existing skylights, to replace the skylights with Monel standing seam roofs, the samples which will be forthcoming, to maintain visual continuity and symmetry of the existing facade, and we'll explain that in the plans and photographs that we'll show, and of course, to improve energy efficiency of the building as part of the agenda. The context and the existing conditions of the building also involve the recognition that the Metropolitan Museum of Art has evolved over time with many wings to it, and that bringing them into dialogue with each other is something that we've tried to do in addressing Wing J that you can see has a zone marked over it. Just to the south of the Great Hall, you can see the zone that is impacted on the edge of Fifth Avenue. An aerial view here looking from the southeast at the designated zone of the Wing J. It's not entirely visible from the street, but hardly. The hall, the landmarked interior, and then the ring in pink with the Cypriot collection to the west and the Ancient Near East to the east, fronting onto Fifth Avenue. The line here demarcating the separation between the Great Hall and the impacted galleries and the threshold of the landmarked areas here in the foreground, with the areas to the south just beyond that, the existing conditions, of course. Here, in this drawing, in the upper left-hand side, you can see a section, a cut through the building. You see the Jaharis vault in the center, and to the right of that, fronting on Fifth Avenue, you see the slope of the roof where the current skylights are, where we would be replacing it with the Manel samples. And part of the strategy is to look at this more comprehensively. You can see the existing conditions at the very top that are in fact different, and the proposed elevation in the middle to try to emulate the Manel detailing and finish that you can see on the north side, now on the south side. A view from the street, you can just see in a very subtle way the grazing of the skylights right now of Wing J as you look south of the Great Hall. Standing a little bit back with the foreground of the main entry and the steps, you can see a little bit more from a farther perspective. The symmetrical view, looking from the avenues, Wing J to the left and Wing E to the right. A view to the north, again looking at the existing Manel roofing. And the photo montage with the proposed new opaque roofing in the bottom left image, the samples of which have just come in and are on the ground. We can discuss those in a bit. So the existing conditions of the skylight have a border of metal roofing, but with the corrugated glazing, that is the dominant field that you see designated in the center. And here, a view of Wing E looking north. As you look at the upper left image, you can see the standing seam detail that is common to the metal roofing typology. Again, existing conditions of Wing J. In the upper left image, you can see the reinforced corrugated glass, of course not holding up well with the baffles underneath it to mitigate some of the light. All of this, none of this is actually active. Not all of this has been covered, so it's not functional within the galleries. And the proposed design to bring these two wings into symmetry, essentially making them as close to each other as possible. Essentially that the Wing J skylight consists of shingled panels of corrugated wire glass supported from steel purlins that span between steel trusses. The apron surrounding the skylight is clad in Manel metal panels supported from the plank deck below with aluminum flashing. The existing laylight ceiling is obstructed and no daylight is transferred from the skylight through to the galleries below, as I stated just before. And the proposal again is to replace the existing skylights with an insulated standing seam Manel roof cladding supported from a corrugated steel structural deck. The existing Manel metal roofing is proposed to remain except for local replacement at the aprons. And as Wing J does not functionally need a transparent roof, an opaque roof is being proposed for increased energy efficiency. The new Manel panelization will match the existing Wing J Manel apron and mirror the existing roof of Wing E, and this will provide for visual continuity and reinforce the symmetrical composition as one looks at it from Fifth Avenue. Here you're looking at a range of finishes that have been studied. To the left, you can see a new Manel panel, which is obviously quite shiny. To the far right, you can see a 30-year-old aged Manel panel, which shows the scars of time and the patina that evolves out of it. And then there's two middle samples that were researched, the Jax finished and the palm sanded finish. And the motivation, essentially, the recommendation is to go with the palm sanded, in great part because it will dull over time. It will naturally patina, but more immediately, it will lessen the reflection and it will dull the impact in terms of its reflection on the environment. That's an image of the executive wing roof, which is 27 years old. And then here you can see wing K, where there's a portion that is 12 years old and another portion that is 85 years old, just as precedence and as context. The details of which we can go over if you have any questions, but in short, to make sure that there's ample, obviously, waterproofing, insulation, and venting to maintain circulation. And that's essentially the existing conditions that are there now. You can see the shingled corrugated glass that precedes this proposal. And I think we're there, no? And we're open to questions, comments, and dialogue.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right. Do we have any questions? All right. I don't see any questions at this time, but we'll go to public testimony and we may have questions after that. Is anyone in the room, would anyone in the room like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't anyone in the room to speak, I'll turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of remote participants. The first we'll be hearing from is Zainab Turan from the Friends of the Upper East Side. Zainab Turan, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Carroll, Commissioners. The Friends Preservation, this is Zainab Turan speaking on behalf of the Friends of the Upper East Side. Our Preservation Committee supports the replacement of the existing skylights on the Wing J roof over the ancient Near Hall. The alteration is necessary to address the deterioration of the skylights and improve the building's energy efficiency. The new skylights will maintain the visual continuity and symmetry of the existing Fifth Avenue facade and will not detract from the character of the museum. We approved of the use of Manel, which will match the roof material of Wing E on the opposite side of the Great Hall. But we kindly request that the stewards of this institution, as well as the client, conduct experiments to study the aging of the chosen material carefully. We also recommend that the surface reflectivity would be minimized to reduce distraction and glare for neighboring buildings. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Megan Fitzpatrick from Landmark West. Megan Fitzpatrick, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. This is Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee can support the installation of an opaque metal roof in place of non-functioning skylight currently in place on the roof of Wing J. Manel, the proposed material, is long-lasting and features on the roof already and in other parts of the building, such as the symmetrically positioned Wing E. Of the three treatment options suggested, we concur that the palm sanded treatment is the most appropriate, as it removes the sheen from the new Monel and has yielded successful results of speedy yet natural aging of the material, which will in time match the existing Monel on the roof. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 7 recommends approval. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right. Okay, so I think largely supportive testimony. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add at this time.
Nothing, Brett, would you?
No, okay. All right, and no additional questions, commissioners? All right, let's move to close the hearing. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make a? Oh, yeah, we can't even close the hearing.
What's that? You cannot close the hearing.
Well, I think we should just, we always close it, we can close it.
Just always
Yeah,
close
if we
the
have a
hearing.
quorum here, we're just recused, after the quorum present.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Ginsburg, will you make a
I
motion to
move
close?
Close hearing.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Yes.
All right.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. And we won't be able to vote today because we don't have a quorum present. We had a couple of commissioners who had to recuse. So we will have a discussion, and then based on that discussion, we'll have you back as soon as we can. So this is the proposal to replace the skylights with this new Monel material that will have the palm sanded finish and will be the same material that is seen on the other side of, I think, Wing E. So we'll create a symmetrical condition. It is, slightly visible over the Fifth Avenue facade, and so you would see that symmetrical condition in that context. So Commissioner Lutfi, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, I think this is fairly straightforward. The skylights are non-functioning. They're very deteriorated. And the museum has been moving toward covering or eliminating the skylights in general based on, what their needs are today in terms of showcasing the art. The plan is to make the two rooftops symmetrical visually, and the use of materials will help with that, especially over time. So if we were going to be voting today, I could approve this.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
Replacement is required, and it's technically well done, and it serves energy efficiency, so I can approve it.
All right, Commissioner Chapin?
Yes, the materials are, in keeping with the rest of the museum. It'll improve the symmetry of the front, and is of course necessary. And these changes have been going on since the museum began virtually, and certainly are necessary. So I can present. I would approve it as presented.
All right, thank you. And Commissioner Ginsburg?
Appropriate, I can approve it.
Okay, so I think, we have 5 of us who would support it today. Ultimately, we need 6 to vote. So we will bring this back when we have a fuller group of commissioners, and we will relay the consensus of the commissioners present today to recommend approval. All right, thank you very much. All right, we'll move to the next item.
Next and last item of the day, public hearing item number 11, LPC 24-06259, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1197, Lot 29, 230 Central Park West in the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. This is a neo-Georgian style apartment building designed by Nathan Korn, built in 1927. The application is to replace windows.
Hello, my name is Thomas Hutt. I'm the owner of HS2 Architecture. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for your time and consideration. Our application before you proposes to replace 14 existing aluminum glass windows throughout this top floor apartment with in-kind, high-performance aluminum glass windows that will match the current windows in finish, material, operation, and configuration. Our presentation today will outline the scope of our work, provide some history to the building and the history of these windows, introduce other LPC-approved precedents, and summarize our reasons in support of the application. So here we are in the Central Park Historic District. The property is the Bolivar, located at 230 Central Park West at the corner of 83rd Street and Central Park West. The apartment, highlighted in red here, is located on the top floor, the 16th, at the southeast corner, directly under the building's crown. These are two supplemental photos to the existing building. The photo on the left we'll see again is the 1980 tax photo taken of the building. A few brief close-ups of similar windows in the building, ones we could actually photograph a little bit more closely from the outside. This is the earliest tax photo showing the original fenestration, which was 8/8 wood double-hung windows with a center post between the pair of windows. A second tax photo from the 1980s documents the building-wide replacement of the original windows with aluminum and glass windows. These are the windows that are currently installed in the building prior to designation. We believe the full building renovation and long-standing facade alteration occurred between 1976 and 1978 when the Bolivar Hotel was converted to the Bolivar Apartments. This transformation removed all vestiges of the original wood mullion windows. It effectively dates the current windows that we seek to replace as between 45 and 47 years old. This current facade represents something that this community and the building residents are familiar with and I believe would like to retain. There's a picture of the old lobby that had been renovated for the apartments. We provided just a few images of the current windows to help illustrate the defective conditions we have found. The apartment has been sold in an estate sale, and unfortunately, it looks like the windows have not been maintained as well as other windows throughout the building. The location at the top floor corner facing the park also places these windows in a heightened wind terrain condition and occupies the most exposed position in the building, resulting in more damage than in other locations in the building. The window deterioration includes racked frames, deficient anchoring, failed sashes, substandard glass lights, and extreme condensation on much of the glass. The detective frames and sash are oxidizing and corroding and do not meet current code wind load standards. The sashes are failing and no longer function properly. The glass lights, which are not up to current insulated glass standards, are failing due to wind loads and stresses over time, imparted by the top floor and corner location of the windows under discussion. The building is not considering a master plan initiative and relies on a repair program for the windows. In my professional opinion, these windows have outlived their performance lives due to their location in the most challenging position in the building, and repair would be ineffective without any guarantee of a satisfactory, long-lasting outcome. Now I have several drawings that simply show the windows under consideration, the demolition of them, and the replacement in kind. So here are plans and elevations of both facades illustrating the current windows to be removed and the proposed replacement windows. In seeking out these replacement windows, we worked long and hard to source a custom sliding window manufacturer able to recreate the dimensions and profiles of the current frame, sash, and color, and provide windows with comparable fixed and operable portions to the current windows. I'll just keep going through these. By the way, my client read the LPC handbook when this all started on windows and found that staff could approve window replacement in major facades if the windows match the historic windows. which is defined in the handbook as a window or door installed at a time of major facade alteration 30 or more years ago. Given her strong belief in the advisability of replacement over refurbishment and the extraordinary long lead times for custom product, she bought the windows. The window sections here of the existing window and masonry conditions and the proposed new windows show that we will be positioning these new windows in the current masonry openings in the same location as the current windows to be replaced. Let me also point out that when the original 8/8 windows were removed, all the associated brick mold was also removed, and the current aluminum and glass windows installed in the 1970s were installed masonry to masonry. Our proposed windows will also be set tight to the existing masonry openings. And here are just some more of the images. This is for created each window type with its replacement window, which is virtually the same size and proportion and operation. 230 Central Park West is a highly decorative building with a wide range of different materials: brick, stone, cast stone, terracotta, marble, ironwork. These materials give the building much of its wonderful pre-war character, allowing the windows to recede. The major facade renovation beginning in 1976 and completed by 1978 retained all the decorative stone materials and features, except for the installation of through-wall air conditioners that were installed over time. We believe that these decorative details help the boulevard contribute to the CPWH Historic District and provide a strong counterstatement to the more neutral and long-standing alteration characterized by the current metal and glass windows. We've created a few views to illustrate the consistency of the fenestration on both street facades subsequent to the major facade alteration in 1976 to 78. Like other building owners and neighbors, we value the repetition and consistency of the building has had for the last 46 years, particularly in contrast to other buildings in the neighborhood that have a variety of windows from different historical periods on the same facade. In these images, stripped of additional items such as shades and/or other competing visuals, we hope our images illustrate that in-kind window replacement will maintain the consistency of the facade and character of the building and contribute to the overall architectural character of the neighborhood. This is 950 Park Avenue, the J.E. Carpenter Building. There are two related C of A's for this building, each of which is somewhat relevant to our application. The first was for fifth floor windows, where the commissioners approved replacing original multi-pane windows with single light tilt and turn windows that existed throughout the rest of the building. This was later followed by an application for in-kind replacement of tilt and turn windows on the fourth floor. Our conclusion is that the commissioners valued the consistency of windows throughout the building facade rather than insisting on returning to original windows that would result in an incomplete and inconsistent building facade. We believe this precedent application contains similar conditions to our application. Little, if any, original window vestiges, a majority of replacement windows older than 30 years, no master plan in place. We hope that the outcome of 950 Park can serve as a guidepost for our own application. In summary, very quickly, in the late 1970s, here let me just a few points to support our application. In the late 1970s, all the original windows at the primary facades were replaced prior to the designation of the historic district. No vestiges of the original windows remained at the time of designation or now. No extant historic features will be altered or eliminated by the proposed work. Excuse me, the proposed work. The windows to be replaced are limited in number and at the top floor of a large building, far from pedestrian eye level. The proposed windows will be consistent with the existing windows throughout the primary facades in terms of proportions, configuration, operation, materials, details, and finish, thereby supporting a unified fenestration pattern and not draw undue attention to the windows. This limited installation of fixed and slider windows will not prevent the installation of multi-light double-hung windows matching the original fenestration at this building in the future. Our application was unanimously approved by CB7 4-0. Our application is a unique site-specific solution where the confluence of environmental factors is causing more window damage than in the rest of the building. This is the first application of its kind from the building since designation, and giving the building's ongoing commitment to maintenance of the existing windows, a master plan is not being contemplated at this time. Our replacement windows will maintain the regularity and consistency of the current facade by proposing nearly identical windows to what exists. Now, the Boulevard is blessed with abundant masonry ornamentation that supports and balances the more neutral glass and metal windows that naturally recede in place. And finally, previous C of As exist where LPC has approved in-kind window replacement in lieu of returning to original window styles and configurations, or where the applicant has matched the predominant non-original building type. Thank you for that quick run-through.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions? Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
Did you look at using casement windows since slider windows leak like sieves to get a similar look, but with a more energy efficient window?
Well, we now look into matching the windows that were there specifically. That was the original intent, and they are much more technologically advanced. The repair process would simply not bring 50-year-old windows. I'm sorry.
That isn't my question.
Please.
My question is, if you're replacing the windows, you're proposing to replace them with sliders. Casement windows, which could look very similar, are much more energy efficient because you get a much tighter seal. Did you consider looking at casement as a replacement?
No, we have several casements in this particular, in some of the situations, but only in the window openings that had them previously.
Yes, Commissioner
Just,
Chapin.
from the pictures, that the historic windows were actually, I mean, the original windows were actually 8/8. Looks like, yeah, paired 8/8. Okay, yeah, thank you.
All right, other questions? Okay, we'll move to public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? No, there isn't. So I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a few remote participants. The first we'll be hearing from is Megan Fitzpatrick from Landmark West. Megan Fitzpatrick, I've promoted you to panelist. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee is disheartened to see historic pre-designation photos of the original beautiful double-hung multi-light windows that have been completely replaced by modern sliding windows. Our committee believes it would be remiss of the Commission to encourage the continuation of approving these types of characterless sliding windows. Our committee believes this application offers an opportunity for the building to establish a master plan hinged upon exploring ideas to restore the historic character of the building by bringing back the double-hung multi-light windows. With thoughtful consideration and creativity, we believe that a more sympathetic design befitting of a landmark can be standardized for a future cohesion that is in keeping with the original design intent. Our committee recommends a master plan and further discussion about the restoration of the historic windows, a major contributing factor to the historic character of the building. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Jeremy Woodoff from the Victorian Society of New York. Jeremy Woodoff, I've promoted you to panelist. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Jeremy Woodoff for the Victorian Society in New York. Well, I'm glad that we had signed up to testify on this project because it gives me the opportunity to apologize to the commissioners and the commission staff for casting aspersions earlier on its review of the reconstruction work at the row of buildings on 9th Avenue and 14th Street. I had no idea that the work had been done in non-compliance. And it's quite shocking, actually, that the developer who has been involved in the recent history of these buildings would do work that wasn't very particularly in line with the commission's permit. Anyway, on to our testimony for 230 Central Park West. The Victorian Society is testifying on this post-Victorian building because of the principle involved in the replacement of its windows. The windows installed in the building in the 1970s are an architectural atrocity. The tax photos show how the original paired 8/8 and 6/6 double hung windows enhance the facade and are stylistically appropriate to it. The commission should recognize that historic preservation is for the long term. The goal for this and other buildings should be improvement over time when it can't happen all at once. Piecemeal replacement of inappropriate windows with matching inappropriate windows will result in no improvement and will perpetuate the architectural mistake. Preferably, a master plan would be adopted, but such a plan is just an administrative convenience. In its absence, individual applications still need to be reviewed in terms of architectural appropriateness. The proposed windows are not appropriate. We urge the commission to require windows matching the configuration and operation of the originals. These windows will serve as the model for future window replacements, eventually restoring the building's architectural integrity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I've promoted you to panelist. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HGC finds the proposed window replacement inappropriate. Windows are integral to the legibility of buildings of this age and size, so this window replacement project offers the opportunity for the building to have a window replacement master plan in place that works to restore a uniform window configuration, more in keeping with the building's original fenestration. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. There are no additional hands raised in our attendees list, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 7 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to say any final comments or respond to any of the testimony before we move to our discussion?
No.
Okay, thank you. And commissioners, if there are no other final questions, we'll move to our discussion. Right. Yes. So Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So move.
And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed. So this is a situation where all of the windows were replaced prior to designation with these sliding windows. And this is, I think, the first application we have seen for this building. It's for the top floor. The windows are in deteriorated condition. We understand that the owner misunderstood the window rules and has already purchased the replacement windows, but the question before us today is whether this configuration is appropriate. The applicant has laid out an argument that it would be at the top floor and so less perceptible from the street level, would match the remaining facade. But we've also heard testimony taking a longer view about restoring the historic configuration. So we'll have a discussion about this. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this one?
Well, I am leaning towards saying that these should be double hungs to match the historic windows. It'd be better to have a master plan, but if there's no master plan, if we start approving replacement to match something that isn't historic, we'll never get to something historic. However, I have some flexibility. I could argue it the other way, and if my fellow commissioners have a different opinion, I could be persuaded.
Okay. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, so this is the classic discussion we used to have, in this instance, I see that it's on the upper floor, the top floor, and so I will defer to the vice chair to see.
Okay, Vice Chair Bland. I tried to spare you.
I saw that. Thank you. So it's interesting, we have two Upper West Side or groups coming together on opposite sides. One says yes, the other says no. Staff apparently here, yes and no. And I'm sort of equally divided too. I mean, I think the presentation was as clear and concise of the conundrum that we face tonight that I'm aware of. And that is consistency of perpetuating something that is, you know, not original and perhaps not, wrong, let's just say wrong, versus getting it right over the short term, which over the long term, which will mean over the short term, we'll have a very inconsistent look. So it's completely legitimate that this is such a conundrum for us, I think, because at least from my point of view, I can see both sides. I understand from a strict preservationist point of view, there's only one side, and that's to get it back right and think of the long term as was presented. So,
Yeah.
of course, I'm wondering what Jeannie Lofty's thinking, but kicking the can down. I think one thing can be said here that does tilt me a little bit toward a change, and that is it is the top floor. It is the floor adjacent to cornice. Its inconsistency, if it were to be changed to, I mean, I don't think I'm going to suggest an 8/8. I mean, I just think that's punitive and wrong in our day and age for people who are lucky enough to have this extraordinary situation in view. But if it were to be changed to a 1/1 or a 2/1 or something like that, to give it a little more of the original character, because I think it's true that the slider was just about the worst choice that could be made, visually as well as environmentally. And so to perpetuate that for the long term seems really wrong for both reasons, visually as well as environmentally. And if these windows were installed in the 80s, all of the windows at once were installed in the 80s, well, all of them are going to come due fairly soon. These are not windows to last for 100 years. So are we going to perpetuate these windows for another 40 or 50 years? I'm thinking now, I'm convincing myself that we should start the process now with the top floor with something, and I'm not going to say what it is. Well, I already suggested maybe 2/1, but maybe it's something else. But that's the question, is that even philosophically legitimate? If we're going to go back to something, are we going to now invent the new something, 2/1 versus 8/8, or do we go back to the 8/8? So I think it's a complete conundrum.
But I will say in our, past regulatory history where we have had buildings where the majority of the windows were replaced prior to designation, and the proposal was for either a one-off apartment or as a master plan to do a simplified configuration, we have found that even in most cases, they are seeking a 1/1 double hung window, but we've also, in cases where we felt the building had less ornament and needed more texture in the windows, we've allowed a simplified multi-pane configuration. So I think what you're talking about is not inconsistent with what we've done in the past, to try to do at least a more traditional window type that might have been on a building of this age, even if it's not matching the historic configuration.
This proposal isn't going to deal with all of the windows on the top, right? Because the flanking windows
right.
aren't included.
That's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, Commissioner Lotfi.
So there have been a number of situations, by the way, in the past where multi-light windows in a building, in a pre-war building, were replaced completely by 1/1s. And there was disagreement within the commission as to whether or not we should, even though it spoke to the historic condition, although it wasn't multi-light, and commissioners voted, that might not have been me or Fred, to go back to the original instead of keeping the 1/1s. And it would be a similar situation where the whole building had been changed. So we were starting a new process. So I'm just like sort of refreshing our memories about that.
Yeah.
And I would like to say that in this particular instance, actually, if these are 1980s windows, they're way overdue for replacement. I mean, if you get 25 years or 30 years out of a window, you've done well. This is way beyond it. So these windows are all going to be coming before us soon. And I think it is important for us to help the building as they make this decision by looking at not only what they've done, but the architecture of the building. It just so happens, in my opinion, that the 1980s were just about one of the worst decades in the city for new architecture and for changes to buildings. And I think that these windows, unfortunately, represent that mistake. They not only do not really enhance what's there architecturally, they detract, which I think somebody else mentioned. So, and I do think it is a mistake to continue a bad decision with more work that doesn't work architecturally and also from an energy efficient standpoint. In fact, I am kind of shocked that given what's going on with local law 97 and it's upon us in this city, that the building wouldn't even be taking this into consideration. So number one, I would strongly urge the building to do a window master plan. That does make sense for the future, for now and the future. And I have to say that I would also recommend that we move more towards something that resembles what was there before. And it doesn't, in my opinion, have to be 8/8, but it should at least give a strong nod to that from a design standpoint so that it really coalesces better with the facade of the building. And I do also want to concur with what Fred said. This is actually a very important part of the building, right under the cornice, and it is visible. So I think where we're starting makes a big difference in thinking about this.
Commissioner Jefferson.
I don't feel comfortable making these piecemeal decisions. One way or the other, we're making a decision over time. And either we have a master plan, we say, in principle, we need a master plan before we make piecemeal decisions, or we come up with another way of solving this. But piecemeal decisions without a master plan means that we have a Frankenstein after a while.
I think in many cases, unless our findings are so specific about it being a specific location, like a non-visible or a secondary facade, if we do a piecemeal application, it basically sets the standard going forward. So whatever we do would set that standard. Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, we can't always obviously get buildings to do a master plan depending on, the kind of ownership and so on. However, I mean, all of us feel the need for one in this kind of building. And, normally, like Commissioner Bland and some others, I look at, the top floor as, it's way up there, it's hard to see, and doesn't matter as much in terms of, the perception of what's there. This sort of presents as an opportunity because there are almost the entire primary facade at that level is being replaced. And in this case, the windows really just aren't appropriate for the architecture of the period at all. You know, it's like, sometimes we have things that are sort of reasonably appropriate or more or less, whatever. So what I would like to see is a proposal that is something that has some appropriateness for the architectural style or period. And then hopefully, and ideally, that would be included with, there would be a master plan, but if not, at least there would be a template that others could follow in the future that just, you know, wouldn't look as though it really didn't belong on this kind of building. So,
Yeah.
you know.
And, you know, the master plan, the way we use that is really an administrative tool to help applicants so that if they get the approval once for the prototype, they don't have to come back with all the same materials every
Yes.
single time. And especially if the window type they have an approval for requires full commission review, it spares them from having to go to a public hearing for every single application. But even with the staff level applications, it significantly reduces the amount of materials that need to be submitted going forward, and it allows the expedited review of those prototypes. So it really is a tool to help the building owners, and I encourage the building owners to think about it here, particularly if they want to pursue something that doesn't match the historic window type. But for our purposes, I think that way that we look at it is that unless, as I said, that the approval is so specific due to location, that any approval we take here would be the template or the model going forward and would set the standard. And what we've heard today is I think that none of the commissioners present can find the sliding configuration and operation to be appropriate to this building in terms of its age, style, and architectural character. And so we won't take an action today, but we'll allow you to rethink the configuration. I think obviously if you pursued the historic configuration and even in a metal material, that would be eligible for a staff level permit. But if you do wish to come back to us with a simplified version that sort of evokes the historic or speaks to the historic character of the building, we'll entertain that as well. So we'll leave it open to give you that option. All right, thank you very much. And thank you. You did do a very clear and a very good presentation given what you had to deal with. So thank you. All right, so that concludes our public hearing today. Thank you, everybody, for attending and participating. Thank you. And we will see everybody on next Tuesday, May 21st.